Welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to make this video about figure drawing. This is one thing that a lot of students and people out there who want to learn how to draw the human body always ask me and my process. And now I actually get a chance to show you. My iPad is back, so I have my canvas to show you how I work. And it is live, so I'm not talking over a recorded video. This model is called DAR. I think it's DAR. Anyways, I get most of my reference photos from a website called Graphic Studio through Gumroad. Another one is Mel's Images. And what I like about them is when you pay for the reference pack, you get the license forever. So I have over 10,000 reference photos, some nude, some are like this where it's themed. This was a mixed theming, so this one's a pirate, or I would say pirate. And I really like this particular pack because if you really zoom in on the photo, you don't really lose a lot of detail. And they give you some low res images in case you're on the go and you want to use the cloud services. This one is the high res version. Anyway, onto the drawing. I wanted to break that down because of AI use and because of licensing. And I like to put it out there that if I use a reference photo, I love to give credit to where I get it from. So if I use a model on Instagram or I find a photo online, I try to do a backward search so I make sure that I'm giving credit to the correct person. Because there are a lot of accounts that pretend to be the models, and then I look up and it's like, oh no, they have a different YouTube account or a different Instagram account, so then I have to go and look for it. And so those are some of the things that you have to kind of do in order to make sure that you're following the proper, there's no real rule, but with AI and everything, and I like to be straightforward and tell people the truth. And I wish more artists had some integrity. I'm not naming anybody. Most of the artists I know will do the same thing, so they will put, if they're copying, or not copying, but if they're paying homage to another artist, they'll put their tag and then they'll put after and then the artist that they're paying homage to. So I really enjoy that stuff. Anyways, let's get to it. For beginners, I will say that I would definitely recommend you putting a line, some sort of reference on the, oh, we don't need that, on the canvas. So pages, nope, animation, I don't really use these too often. So we're gonna use a symmetry, but we're not gonna use it for drawing symmetry because it does this. So if you wanna turn that off, you go here and turn the drawing assist off. Now you can draw. I like to put the line down the center so that way I can tell if things are accurate. I don't use it that often because what I do is I'll flip the canvas, which I'll talk about in a second. But in Italian ways of teaching art, they have something called contrapposto, which is the way where you balance out your figure. The nice thing is that this reference photo is already pretty balanced, so there's not a lot of changes that I have to do. The changes I'm going to be doing are more stylistic. So I like to draw my women with a little bit more curves. I just like tall and not girthier, but just fuller women. So if I get a model that's a little thin, I'll add some weight to it. With her, she's just about the right. I would prefer to extend the hips out a little bit, but that's just a personal preference. If you enjoy drawing women who are slightly thinner, that's your prerogative. So here we go. They probably tell you not to start at the head, but this just gives me a good idea of where the rest of the body is gonna go. So from here, you do your normal lumen circle. If you don't do a circle, you do whatever. You can start it right here. This would be your starting point if you're gonna draw like me. And then from here, I try to take the shape of the body. So we're not worrying about the head right now. We're more worried about where we're placing items. She's slightly shorter, so I'm gonna just shrink this down just a little bit. Oops, wrong one. Uniform. And I'm just gonna shrink it down just a little bit, bring it up. So when I talk about shape and form, I will just draw like I'm figure drawing. So I just get really messy with it. And I don't know if you guys notice, but I really don't show this process on my time lapses, because if I put it in there, then the time lapse is just going to be way too long. So this way I can go a little nuts. So here is, this basically is the body. So as you can see, it's kind of telling me where the body is. And then right down the center is where I want to have the hips. So that's going to be the hip, and the head here. And then this is probably where I want the belly button. And these are just measurements for me. They don't have to be exact. And you see how it's already making a bell shape. Now some people like the kidney shape, the kidney bean shape. It's all preference. This is just more to get the proportions right and measuring out the proportions. So with her, she's even between torso and legs. So this same amount of space that I have here from the torso to the legs is where I'm gonna flare out. So this is her stance leg, and then this is one is more straight. So she's flaring out her legs here and straightening her leg here. And now all the gravity is being pushed down here. So if you want to stylistically add hips here, you can. And then right here, you're going to go up with the shoulder, because I don't want her stance to be this frozen in my drawing, but I'm going to draw the shoulders here. So it looks really messy, and that's on purpose. Then the next step after I draw this is hand placement. So I am going to just draw lines to figure out where I want the hands. This one's kind of straight, but there's always going to be, if you really look at your hand, stretch it straight out, there's a lot of curves in it. So they always say in figure drawing is to draw in the direction that you want. So her elbow comes up to the rib cage, so that's where I'm going to draw my line for the elbow. And then right here she's holding a sword, so let's dip down, because remember her hip is extending to the right in my drawing. So now this part of the arm is going to be being taken over by the hip. So from here, stretch out, and of course I curved the hand, I didn't keep it straight. I do that for a lot of reasons, but I'll show you in a second why I do that. And then the hand right here, this is your hand, this is what you're working with. So from here you could decide, hey, I want to keep building this up, but one thing I like to do is I will keep this as its own layer and just lower the opacity down, not that much, but maybe about 40%. And then on here I will repeat it and tweak out any things that I didn't really like about that first sketch. And what it's called iterations. You don't have to do it that way. If you find another way to do it, you can just draw on the original picture, you can draw in a different color and then just draw over it in another color. But your first sketch is more just like your building block. So here is where I start filling in the bigger shapes. So remember how I told you that this will come into play? Because this cylinder here is going to stop right about there, another line, and then you got another cylinder. And simplifying the human body down into shapes is huge. So then right here, draw another circle to signify where the elbow is and your shoulder. I always like to use a weird, like obloid. I don't know the proper term. I suck at math, so don't ask me about shape names. I am horrible at them. And then here, this other cylinder is gonna overlap that circle. So just, and the arm, you see how the hand has this weird divot here? I forgot the name of that bone. I wanna say it's the ulna, but this bone here sticks out and your hand is either gonna drop down that way or go out this way. So using that same idea, let's say we're just gonna have her hand a little limp, because the limp is more feminine. So pin-up poses from the 40s, you'll see a lot of girls, they have their photos taken for either Playboy or any of those pin-up magazines. They'll limp their hands a little bit. So just a little limp. You didn't have to draw that out. It's just my brain always goes to getting the sketch going. I have to remember I'm doing this step by step. So then here in the back, you have to remember the back muscles. So these are going to be your shoulder blades, your trapezius, and then your lats. And you're envisioning it from the front, but you're drawing it as the back. So this lays out that structure. So you see how it's starting to come out now? And you're not going to accentuate that hip as much, but you could. So in my drawing, I'm just gonna do that. Let's just accentuate this hip. And then right here, this rib cage right here, you can either draw it out, which I will because this is a tutorial, and it should look like a little plate of armor, like an old knight's armor. And it has the same kind of basic function as this drawing where you're protecting your heart, your lungs. So you think of it as a shield for your heart and your lungs. And then from here, you draw another obloid shape, and then your cylinder again, your circle, and then another cylinder that overlaps. Now here's the tricky part. We're not going to completely draw this hand out. I'm going to keep it a circle. The reason why is because in the picture she's making a fist. So you can either fill in the fist if you want, but I like to leave the circle because it's going to tell me where this weapon's going to go, but I'm not worried about the weapon. So I'll just draw a faint line to tell me, hey, this is where the weapon was. And then from here, the center line that you drew, you will stop at her pelvis and you will connect these two hips. Now you see there's just a shape discrepancy, which is fine. If you see that and you want to fix it, you can just make them one layer and then use your shape tool and shorten it a little bit so you have more room to work with. So now none of your layers have changed. So this means that I might have to extend the feet just a little bit more. So I will just eyeball it. And plus she's on heels, so she's probably a lot shorter than this in real life. So this is the reason why I didn't draw the kneecaps, because in the picture she's wearing boots. So you have to eyeball where those knees are. So that same guiding line that you drew originally, just draw it again all the way down, but then try to figure out where you think you want the knees. If you're making a stylistic character, there's some characters that they'll make the knees all the way down here, or they'll stylistically put them up here. But if you're hyper realistic, you're gonna be a little bit more nitpicky on where those are gonna be. And then this would be your hip bones. And from here, I believe this is the femur. The femur is the biggest bone in the legs. So you can either draw those in, or you can do the same technique you were doing here with the arm and just draw some cylinders. And because the thighs are way bigger than the arm, the cylinders are gonna be a lot bigger. Now, when you get down to the calves and the ankles, judging by this, it's going to be a little smaller than this. So you're going to use a smaller cylinder. It depends too, because if I look at my own legs, I got huge calves, so I would draw them like this. But a more feminine pose is going to be smaller calves. I've seen people with way smaller legs than even my own arms. So now her leg is slightly front facing here, and this one's kind of going to the side. So I will put another guiding line here to tell me, hey, I got to draw the knee kind of facing out. And then from here, go down here. And stylistically, I will just use a triangle with a little cone at the bottom, almost like an upside down ice cream. And then here, I will do just a straight triangle. And you want to make sure that these line up, which they do. Now you see you got a whole structure laid out. From here, you can go one step further. So I'm going to keep this layer merged, but I'm going to lower the opacity just a little bit more, and then almost completely to the other one. And keep that as a group. Create another layer. And here's where you're going to start filling in some details. Not completely detailed, but some details. So, oh, why did it do that? I'm still getting used to the buttons on the iPad Pencil Pro. They added a bunch of new features, and so here I am going to start shaping in little details. So I need to make some room though. So let's make some room for that hat. So I'm gonna lower this just a little bit, because now you have all the proportions correct. Here we go. So I am going to start putting in that Loomis effect in the head. And you notice I haven't even put where the eyes and nose are going to be, because those are small details. You worry about that later. And here's where I would pump the brush size just a little bit, because blocking in areas is if you're doing it with a small brush, you're going to be here a while. But I will just block in shapes. So here we go, captain's hat. This weird shape here. I'll leave that there. Obviously it looks really dumb right now, but that's okay. And for these areas, her breasts, which I'm just going to indent here, and then the shape of the rib cage. Now you can use one with a little bit of opacity so that way you can press harder for darker. I'm going really light and block in these areas, and now you can shape. I'm going to lower the, you can shape this area a lot more now, but now you can create an outline because now you have something to work with. If you draw an outline right off the bat, it's going to look like crap. So here we go, and here I will just fill in the idea of what I'm going for. It doesn't have to be completely accurate at the moment. This is more of a guideline for you. Now she has straps going down to her shirt. I'm gonna omit that completely and just make it like a corset. I'm a sucker for drawing corsets. I just think they look so cool. And just a little indent there. Connect the shoulder here. She has slightly smaller trapezius muscles, so you don't have to worry about that. The hair is covering this one. And here, her pelvis is kind of leaning back. So what you can do with that is when you draw in the hips to tell you where that is, you can use shading. So I'm going to shade this a lot darker because it's further back. So this is where you start working in the light theory. And light theory is going to change constantly using the idea that light is coming this way. So of course, unlike the reference photo where it looks like the light's coming from here, I'm going to pretend like my drawing, the light is coming this way. So that means any hitting here is going to light up, and then all this side is going to be shaded. So that's why under her corset, it's darker, then it lights up, then it gets darker again. So just have that idea in mind. Always think about light source. One of the biggest things I learned just all the years of drawing is how important light is. Light is the #1 thing you have to always be cognizant of when you're drawing. And this looks a little messy just because this is a really quick. Normally I take a lot longer with my beginning sketch laying out. So you see, I'm not really going that detailed. This is more of, again, like I said, it's more of a guideline. And here is where you want to at least give an idea of where you want fingers to be. And I've been drawing for almost 30 plus years of my life, so I still struggle with hands. It's something you're always going to struggle. Every artist, and you can leave it in the comments, every artist struggles with something. And mine has always been hands. Feet, I have no problem with. So ask any artist out there. But leave it in the comments what you struggle with, and leave a chef to let me know that you've made it this far. And don't forget to share and subscribe. That always helps the channel. So now we got the basic idea. And the reason why I tell you to keep those layers separate is if you ever want to go back to the sketch, let's say you hated this, which I do it all the time. So don't feel bad. But let's say you hated this and you wanted to start from fresh, you got the sketch right there. But if you liked it, now you can make that go away. And now you can fill in what you need here. And you can work with as many layers as you want, or you can be a renegade and just go. Now here's where I'm gonna do my first preliminary sketch. And when I tell people I'm doing a preliminary sketch, if I'm doing a commission or someone's asking me to draw something for them, this is the one that I normally send them. It's just an idea. Hey, do you like this so far? Can we move forward? Yeah, so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna move forward with what idea you have in mind. If they say, no, I don't like it, then I go back to the drawing board. The biggest thing I always tell everyone is don't get married to your drawings. Be okay with ripping it up and starting fresh. So if you feel like the mistake is that big where you have to start over, well, by all means, start over. But if you continue on with the little accidents that you have, go right ahead. Sometimes those little accidents turn into epiphanies, and then you have something to work with later. So right here, I'm not really showing you much that you didn't already see. This is just so you get an idea of what it would be like once you're filling in that sketch that you've been working on. So this is a chance for me to just talk to you guys. This might be difficult for some people who are drawing traditionally. I will tell you that the process is almost identical. The only difference is you don't have layers. So unless you're not working with tracing paper, My biggest recommendation if you're doing this with a piece of paper is to draw very light. So if you have a B pencil, an F, or an H pencil, just draw really light so that way you can always go back and erase, or you can just draw over it. Another method that I like to use a lot is I will use a red color pencil or a light blue color pencil because it will be a different color than the graphite. And so you can sketch over it, not really have to worry, especially if it's a sketch. If it's going in a sketchbook, make mistakes, leave them in there, try it again. Or if you're using printer paper, by all means, printer paper comes in packs of 500, so you have plenty to use. So this works in a sketchbook and it works in real life, or not a sketchbook, but on digital. So you always have that option. I prefer to draw on real paper, and then I'll take a picture of it and then scan it in, but not everybody likes to do that. So I always tell every student at school and everyone that asks me out in the open, there are multiple ways to skin a cat. And it's the same thing with drawing. There is no right or wrong way to do something when it comes to the process. As long as you trust the process, which is this process, any other process that you learn and it works for you, you're doing it the right way. And I always say in the videos, especially recently, is to spread some positivity out there. If you see someone struggling with their art, just give them a like and just leave a positive message. Hey, you're doing pretty good. Keep going, don't give up. So here is where another spot that I wanted to talk about is the face. I know a lot of people struggle with that. I will make a whole entire video on drawing the face. So I have the option to turn the canvas. So I'm only turning it so that I know that her eyes line up almost square with her ears. So I might have to move her ear just a little bit up. And it looks like her nose is about there and her mouth is slightly under that. So we don't have to copy her face, excuse me, exactly. What we can do is just go from here. So I am going to draw my own style of eyes. I really like drawing the top of the eyelid first, and then I'll flare out, and then the bottom, and I'll leave it like that. I'm not going to go any more detail from here. That's just so I know where the eye is. And then instead of drawing the shape of the nose right off the bat, I will just draw a slightly elongated triangle and then a small triangle. Nothing crazy. And then for the lips, you can either just leave a line, and then here this is going to represent the lip. I know it looks like her mouth is open, but this is just an idea for me to follow. And then I'll still keep this funky shape for the hat. I'm not too worried about the hat right away. The biggest thing, does the character look all right? Now once I'm finished with that sketch, I will get rid of this one, and from here I think I like it. You always want to double check, how does it look? It looks all right. There's nothing when you flip it that looks kind of off. So there you go. That is how I draw my figures. You see how many steps I took, and when I do my time lapses, I'm usually at this stage when you see the time lapses. I don't really show these spots because the video would then be really long. So I like to leave it there. But coming in the future, I will do one about the face, one about just arms in general, and legs. And if there's anything else you guys would like me to touch on, digital or traditional, let me know. I love making these kind of videos. It's a lot of fun exploring these tools and this process. So if you do have a drawing, I'd like to see where you're at. You can leave me a comment with your either Instagram or TikTok, and I'll head over and check it out. Or you can find me on Instagram at artsensei86. That is my Instagram. And then TikTok's a little tough because their messaging system, you have to follow each other to send it. So Instagram is going to be the best place to check it out and send me stuff. If I don't get to you right away, it's just that it's stuck in my hidden folder. I check that at least once a week, so I make sure that I'm seeing everything that comes in. But if I don't see it, just shoot me a message or tag me on something. Tagging is actually pretty good too. If you just tag me in it, then it shows up on my feed and then I can repost it. Like I said, I love sharing artwork as long as it's not harmful and it looks like you guys are trying. I love seeing what you guys create, from not just here, but just in general. I love seeing what you guys come up with. I'm gonna keep doodling this and then post it on my Instagram so you can see the final result. Anyways, thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget to share and subscribe. I will catch you in another one. Don't forget to keep it over 9,000 and share that positivity. Take care.